Listen to me with your full attention, for what I am about to share with you will mark the turning point between the life you've endured and the life you were born to live. For 25 years, I delved into the minds of more than 500 of the most successful men in America. Men who forged empires, shaped industries, and left their names etched into the bedrock of history. I was not seeking wealth alone, but the hidden principle that made such wealth inevitable, the invisible thread that united them, the mental code they carried, often in silence, often misunderstood, yet undeniably powerful. Carnegie, Ford, Edison, Rockefeller, names spoken with reverence, names that echo through time. They all knew something, practiced something, believed something that set them apart. Each one began their day not in randomness or reaction, but in ritual, a ritual of the mind, a quiet inner ceremony before the world demanded their attention. Before their feet touched the floor, they declared who they were, what they would do, and what they would become. They rose not with the worries of yesterday, but with the intention of greatness. Their mornings were sacred, and yet how do you rise? With fear already speaking, with doubt crawling across your mind like a shadow before the sun, you wake defeated, poisoned by the lingering residue of a mind trained to expect lack, to anticipate loss, to brace for disappointment. This is the silent prison in which 98% of humanity lives. Not chains of iron, but thoughts. And these thoughts, repeated, solidify into fate. But right now, as these words enter your mind, that chain can begin to break. This is your moment. For what if I told you that the first 5 minutes after waking determine the entire course of your day? What if I revealed that every towering fortune, every staggering achievement, every leap in human progress began not in factories or boardrooms, but in the silent, intentional focus of a morning mind? A mind that spoke into the silence with such faith, such emotion, such clarity, that the universe itself had no choice but to respond. Your mind is not a passive container. It is a broadcasting tower, a receiver and a transmitter. And the words you speak with emotion and faith go directly to your subconscious, which is forever linked to infinite intelligence, the source of all power, wisdom, and possibility. This is not fantasy. This is law. The subconscious mind does not reason or debate. It accepts what you impress upon it, and it goes to work manifesting it in your world. Andrew Carnegie understood this. Before the sun gilded the rooftops of Pittsburgh, he stood before his window and declared his will with such fervor that people felt his power before he ever spoke. Edison, long before his lab flickered with light, would commune with the unseen, declaring his dominion over the mysteries of invention. Rockefeller, Ford, Schwab, they all knew the secret. They did not allow the world to speak into their minds before they had spoken their truth into themselves. You've been led by the reins of fear and routine. You've allowed the wild horse of your mind to gallop wherever past wounds or societal voices pleased. But I am about to hand you 11 phrases, 11 declarations that are not mere affirmations, not empty words to soothe. These are the living crystallization of all I learned in my decades of study. These phrases hold the distilled fire of empires, the blueprint of mental alchemy. Each one is a seed that, if planted daily with belief, will alter the terrain of your destiny. But there are two conditions. First, you must speak them every single morning without fail. Second, you must speak them with feeling, burning, unwavering, commanding feeling. Words without emotion are dust. Words with belief are lightning. Let these words become part of your bloodstream. I am the master of my fate. Do not let them pass through your lips passively. Let them engrave themselves into your consciousness. These 6 words hold the power to lift you from any pit, to disarm any obstacle, to shatter any illusion of helplessness. I once met a man who had lost everything: his business, his savings, his self-respect. He sat before me broken, convinced life had turned against him. I gave him only these 6 words and told him to speak them each morning with the voice of a man reclaiming his life. 6 months later, he had doubled what he'd lost. Not by luck, by law. Most people live as if they are leaves blown by the winds of chance. They blame the government, the economy, their upbringing, their boss, their spouse, but they are wrong. The authors of fate are not outside you. They live inside your own skull. Every condition you face today is the harvest of yesterday's dominant thoughts. Henley was not writing poetry when he wrote, "I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul." He was speaking a universal law, immutable as gravity. What you impress upon your subconscious becomes your reality. Look at Charles Schwab, a $1-a-day worker in Carnegie's Mills. No name, no pedigree, but every morning he stood in front of a cracked mirror and declared that he would one day run the mills. Not wish, not hope, declare, command. And so he did. He rose to lead the U.S. Steel Corporation and earn $1 million salary when $1,000 was wealth. That's not magic, that's mental mastery. Henry Ford was laughed at, mocked, belittled when he said he'd build a car for the common man. Experts scoffed, banks refused him, but every morning Ford told his mind what would be, and he didn't stop when life resisted. He deepened his belief. The mind is soil. It grows whatever seed you plant. Plant doubt, reap limitation. Plant sovereignty, reap mastery. Stand before your mirror each dawn. Look yourself in the eyes. Say it as if your life depends on it, because it does. Feel your own power coming online. Feel the chains fall. Feel yourself becoming cause, not effect. The law of attraction is not fantasy. It is a system. What you deeply believe, you magnetize. You either attract or repel success by the atmosphere of your thoughts. Speak this next truth into the silence. My definite chief aim guides my every action. Without it, you are a ship tossed by every wave. With it, you become a guided missile. Life does not respond to vague wishes. It responds to precise intentions, charged with emotion. Carnegie told me plainly, most people fail because they never decide what they truly want. They dabble, they drift, they scatter their energies, but those who win decide. Then they declare. Then they devote their lives to that aim. Barnes was no one when he declared he would become Edison's partner. He had no money, no backing, no credentials. But each morning in his shabby room, he said it aloud, "I will work with Edison, not for Edison, with Edison." And Edison, far from his bed, prefrontal, frontier, separatist, Barnes was no one when he declared he would become Edison's partner. He had no money, no backing, no credentials, not one, not for a suit, not for a fog, but for a man. The force of his conviction burned through every obstacle until the opportunity opened, as it must, because mental clarity backed by emotional conviction becomes irresistible. Rockefeller at 23 already knew his destiny, to become the world's greatest oil refiner. He saw it, breathed it, aligned every decision with it, and reality had no choice but to comply. The subconscious mind, given a clear command and consistent emotional fuel, becomes a 24-hour miracle worker. It brings to you the people, the plans, the strength, and the doors that were invisible before. Every morning, speak your aim as though it's already complete. Feel it, see it, celebrate it in advance. The subconscious cannot tell the difference between vividly imagined success and actual success. When you speak with conviction, you plant mental blueprints that reality rushes to build. Say it now and say it again. I possess within me all the power I need. You've been trained to believe in lack, to look outside for permission, validation, power, but you are already connected to the source of all creation. Edison had no formal education, yet he gave the world electric light, because he understood the mind's connection to infinite intelligence. When in doubt, he would sit in stillness and affirm his unity with that source. Then answers would flood in. George Washington Carver, born into slavery, became one of the greatest minds of his time. When asked how he discovered over 300 uses for the peanut, he said, "I asked the Creator, and then I waited." You have access to the same infinite mind. But doubt acts as static. Remove the static by affirming your connection every single day. The world has trained you to shrink, but your spirit was designed to expand. You are not the echo of other people's opinions. You are the voice of creation itself. When you speak to your subconscious with fire and faith, it must respond. And now, declare this with unwavering boldness. Today, I will go the extra mile in all I do. This simple, often ignored principle has built more fortunes than any other. Most people give the minimum. They do just enough to not be fired. They coast. They complain. They wait for recognition before excellence. And they wonder why life gives them leftovers. But those who rise understand. You get back what you give, but multiply. This is the law of increasing returns. Schwab turned a failing mill into the most profitable plant in Carnegie's empire because he gave more than he was paid to. 12-hour days, total commitment. He didn't wait for compensation. He became invaluable. And so he was rewarded beyond imagination. Nature operates on this principle. The farmer who gives extra care reaps an extra harvest. The worker who gives more than expected rises higher, faster. The universe always gives more to those who give more. If you've been holding back, ask yourself, are you living under the law of increase or the law of minimum? Every morning, declare that you will exceed expectations, not for applause, but because you understand the law. Because you are no longer living by default, you are now living by design. These are not slogans. These are tools. These are the mental levers that lift the world. Use them, speak them, believe them, and watch as the old life, the one you were trained to accept, dissolves like smoke in the presence of the one you were destined to create. Most people, when faced with failure, blame everything and everyone but themselves. They point fingers, make excuses, and shrink back from responsibility. But the truth remains unshaken. Those who succeed are not those who complain, but those who choose to go the extra mile, not with burnout and bitterness, but with excellence, enthusiasm, and an unwavering commitment to bring value into every room they enter, every task they touch, and every person they encounter. To go the extra mile is not to run yourself into the ground. It is to rise into a realm of rare character, to do more, become more, and serve more than is required or expected. It is to infuse your actions with purpose, polish your skill with intention, and seek opportunities to uplift every environment you're part of. When this principle becomes your way of life, you cease to be ordinary. You become a light in a world of apathy, a standard bearer of excellence among the mediocre masses. Opportunities begin to chase you down. Promotions find you. Recognition becomes inevitable. Finding food for fault, recognition becomes inevitable. Find food for fault, recognition becomes inevitable. Success no longer whispers maybe, it declares certainly. Andrew Carnegie, one of the wealthiest men of his age, built his fortune not on chance, but on this principle alone. He sought out those who willingly did more than what was asked. He paid them not for their titles or time, but for their habit of delivering beyond the call of duty. Every man who rose to fortune under his mentorship did so by rendering extraordinary service. It wasn't favoritism. It was alignment with an immutable law of the universe. Success flows toward those who give more than they are paid for. Every morning when you awaken and declare your intention to go the extra mile, you send out a command to your subconscious mind. It begins working on your behalf, seeking ways to improve your service, generate new ideas, and elevate your reputation. In time, you are known not just for what you do, but for how you do it, with heart, with excellence, with unmagnet integrity. This reputation becomes a magnet for abundance. It becomes your shield in times of uncertainty, your calling card in the marketplace. You will never be in lack when your identity is anchored in service. Wealth flows to the one who serves, not the one who schemes. This principle dissolves forever the myth that success is born from manipulation. Every enduring fortune is founded upon service. The greater the value you give, the greater the reward you receive. This is law, not luck. Henry Ford became one of the richest men on earth not by preying on others, but by lifting them. His mission was not wealth, but service, making reliable, affordable transportation accessible to the everyday person. His innovations were not greed-driven, but people-focused. His wealth was simply the ripple effect of the value he poured into the world. He said it best, a business that makes nothing but money is a poor business. Money is merely the shadow cast by service. It arrives uninvited to those who create genuine impact. Those who attempt to hoard without offering value, who attempt to take without giving, who try to withdraw without ever making a deposit, these are the ones who ultimately lose everything. The will to make the world better has the capacity to make and to withdraw. The will to make it better has the capacity to make and to withdraw. The will to make it better has the capacity to make and to withdraw. The will to make it better has the capacity to make and to withdraw. The will to make it better has the capacity to make and to withdraw. The universe does not tolerate imbalance for long, but the one who gives, who contributes, who serves from the heart, this person aligns with the law of compensation and is repaid 1,000-fold. Frank W. Woolworth became wealthy not by ignoring the poor, but by dignifying them. While other merchants turned their backs on those with only nickels and dimes, Woolworth saw humanity, potential, and a need that he could meet. He created stores where every person, no matter their income, could buy with dignity. In meeting their needs, he met his own destiny. J.P. Morgan, often misjudged, did not simply accumulate wealth, he organized chaos. He brought structure to industry. He saw what others couldn't see, a system waiting to be born. He served the economy, served the people, served the future, and in doing so, was richly rewarded. When you affirm each day that you attract wealth through service, you begin to perceive the world differently. You see needs that others overlook. You become attentive, creative, and generous. You develop what can only be called a service consciousness, a magnetism of spirit that draws to you the right people, the right ideas, the right doors. This isn't mystical. It's practical. You become indispensable, unforgettable, undeniable. Selfishness repels prosperity because it violates the laws of energy exchange. You cannot withdraw what you never deposited. You cannot harvest where you never planted. But the soul committed to giving becomes like a river, ever flowing, ever full. For the universe itself is built on circulation, breath, seasons, tides, life. What you give, you must and will receive. Failure, too, is not the end, but the forge. It is the fire that tempers you. Every loss, every rejection, every setback carries a hidden benefit, but only for those who dare to look for it. The masses fall because they interpret temporary failure as final. But the wise know better. They sift through ashes to find embers. They transform falls into steps, wounds into wisdom, detours into destiny. Abraham Lincoln endured loss after loss, business failure, heartbreak, political defeat, but each one carved into him the resilience, empathy, and strength required to save a nation. He did not reach the presidency in spite of his failures, but because of them. Thomas Edison, in his journey to invent the light bulb, did not suffer through 10,000 failures. He discovered 10,000 paths that didn't lead to light. He saw failure not as defeat, but as data. And in time, that same mindset illuminated the entire world. R.U. Darby gave up 3 feet from gold. He sold his dream for pennies, but the lesson burned into his soul. He took that failure, transformed it into fuel, and became one of the most successful insurance men in America. He learned the principle: never quit on a dream just because the result isn't immediate. Every morning, when you affirm that you transform failure into stepping stones, you begin to program your mind for resilience. You develop failure immunity. You become a student of adversity, a master of comebacks. Life's resistance strengthens you like wind strengthens the tree or weight strengthens the muscle. Success is not the absence of failure. It is the transformation of failure into fuel. It is the soul that refuses to stay down, the heart that keeps beating through disappointment, the mind that keeps growing through every trial. You build success the way you build muscle, through repetition, resistance, patience, and persistence. There is no other way. Instant gratification is the fantasy of the lazy. But real success, the kind that lasts, is slow-cooked, deep-rooted, and forged over time. James J. Hill built his railroad empire over 20 years of grinding work, overcoming mockery and setbacks. Marshall Field rebuilt his entire business after a devastating fire and turned his name into an institution. These men were not extraordinary by talent. They were extraordinary by endurance. The compound effect of daily effort is invisible at first. Like seeds in the soil, progress happens in silence. But then one day, everything blooms at once. Those who remain patient reach the tipping point, the moment when everything they've sown suddenly multiplies. Calvin Coolidge said it best: talent won't replace persistence. Education can't outwork determination. Genius is wasted without follow-through. But persistence, it changes everything. When you affirm that you are building your success with patience and persistence, you inoculate yourself against the disease of rushing. You align with the natural rhythms of the universe. You become unstoppable, not because you're faster, but because you don't stop. And none of this matters if your mind is left unguarded. The mind is fertile ground. Whatever seeds are planted there, belief or doubt, courage or fear, will grow. You must become the vigilant gardener. Negative influences are everywhere. The cynic, the complainer, the defeated, but their thoughts are not your thoughts. Their limits are not your limits. Guglielmo Marconi, the father of wireless communication, was nearly committed for insanity by friends who couldn't understand his vision. Henry Ford was told his dreams were impossible by engineers, bankers, even his own father. But they closed their minds to the noise. They listened to the quiet, persistent voice within, the voice of possibility. Negative thoughts are mental poison. They creep in through the words of others, through fear, through past pain. But you can choose a different focus. You cannot fight darkness by complaining about it. You drive it out by turning on the light. Every morning, when you declare that your mind is closed to negative influences, you engage your mental immune system. You set a filter in place. You train your subconscious to accept only what aligns with your purpose. And filter your thoughts. You train your subconscious to accept only what aligns with your purpose. You become immune to doubt. indifferent to fear, untouched by limitation. You no longer entertain thoughts that do not serve your highest destiny. And finally, gratitude. This is the golden key. To begin your day with thankfulness is to invite abundance. Gratitude magnetizes blessing. It shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present, from lack to fullness. And what you appreciate expands. John D. Rockefeller, even when he was a poor clerk earning pennies, practiced gratitude. He gave thanks for small blessings, and they multiplied. He saw every obstacle as a gift, every opportunity as sacred, and the universe rewarded his mindset. Gratitude is not soft. It is powerful. It is an amplifier of good, a multiplier of prosperity, a healer of discouragement. What you thank life for, life gives you more of. When you give thanks, your subconscious scans the world for more to appreciate, and in doing so, it brings it to you. This is not just mindset. This is universal law. What you focus on with emotion, you attract. So begin with service. Rise with patience. Embrace failure. Close your mind to negativity and give thanks without ceasing. Live this way, and success will not only come, it will come abundantly, irresistibly, and in ways more wondrous than you ever imagined.